Logistics is the process of sending your product overseas to the warehouses, like to warehouses. And so that could be your distributor's warehouse, that could be your fulfillment warehouse. But basically, you have to figure out how you're going to get your product, your manufactured products in bulk to the warehouse. And so you can do it using air freight. This is using, I think this is worldfreight.com, so you can get like rough price quotes. But generally, this is 250 kilograms per cubic meter. And so at 250 kilograms, and you're paying about $2,500, which is about $10 per kilogram. And that's like the rough wholesale air freight cost. So you like generally air freight shipping is expensive. And so you would use air freight shipping if you needed to get something somewhere fast. Like if you sold out and you have a lot of customers in backlog waiting for something, then you do air freight. So you can also do sea freight shipping. Sea freight shipping is generally very complicated because you have to deal with like kind of archaic things like the bill of lading and like all these port fees. But this is like from Hong Kong to LA, doing a full shipping container, like a full 40-foot shipping container, you can go up to about 20,000 kilograms. But and it's a fixed cost. It's about $1,500. And the reason why is because shipping containers are very efficient because they're stackable and they're like they're incremental units. So you'll just pay for that shipping, the rental of that shipping container, and then the transport.
Unless your shipping company goes bankrupt.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So or isn't allowed to port? Like it was it? What was it? Hunjin Shipping basically went bankrupt, and the ships were all out, and they weren't allowed back into the ports.
Yeah. You have to start buying. Like you have to start thinking about like weird things too. Like if you're going through, like if you're going past like Indonesia, you have to worry about. Like or buy insurance for pirates and things like that.
But actually, with the shipping container, you've got things like refrigerated, like reefer containing, and then if you've got hazardous materials, you add onto there. And at each point, you're kind of adding cost to it. The other thing with the shipping and just generally with logistics is that there's peak times and non-peak times. So just before Christmas, anywhere from say.
Like is it
actually
3 months before Christmas is when you
and even a bit earlier because you want your stuff in the stores or you want it ready to go to customers by at least November. So there are kind of times where there's delays. So being aware of sort of the shipping trends or the kind of volume trends can affect how quickly you can get product to customers.
Oh, and so for when we take people around in Shenzhen, then generally first place we take them to is a shipping agent because shipping agent will be your best friend. So they'll handle all the air freight for you, or if you want to do sea freight, they'll handle sea freight for you. And basically you ask them for what's the cost door to door. And door to door means from the door of your warehouse, like from the door of your factory to the door of your warehouse or wherever you're shipping them to. What is the cost door to door? And so they'll line up all the channels and then get all the costs paid out, and then and so you basically just wait on the other side to receive your products.
And Alvin's got some great stories for import and export and shipping containers.
Alvin's been, I think he's had some interesting war stories about shipping.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So, like, that's kind of a rough overview of what you need to know. Actually, this is the product manufacturing skills stack that you actually need to do when you want to manufacture your product. There's a lot of things to know. So you would need to know marketing. You would need to know, like, marketing is probably the most important, which is why it's first. And then you'll have to understand what your resources are for prototyping. So, like, a lot of, like, the fab labs or whatever, they have, like, a laser cutter and 3D printers, but actually all those services you just get in China. Like those are actually very common, and they're super cheap. But there's also,
I would say it's funny because like for me marketing, I would say marketing is the least difficult, and all the stuff is like super hard.
Oh really? I would say marketing.
I think that's where it comes from to your background, and so.
It is, right? So. I find the opposite. To be honest. He's good at all of it. Just kind of like, how can you do that?
Well, and this is the thing. I think where my background's content production, so I find marketing. It's like what? I just put my book out and people buy it, don't they? So I think, and generally, I guess maybe the people that we tend to sort of, who are out there doing, say, the manufacturing, are usually coming from like a product background, particularly if they're kind of interested in just doing it themselves. But you're right, it does depend on your background and where. And what's interesting with this whole stack is that it requires such diverse skill set, and each of these sections are really, really deep as well. So, yeah, you do need to just get a bit of an overview over all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think like a lot of people will have their background in different areas, but but prototyping, there's also like you could get stuff prototyped in fiberglass. You could get vacuum molded products that kind of emulates plastic injection molding, and a lot of that stuff isn't available, say, out here or at your common fab labs or whatever. And so so understanding those types of options is really important. Also sourcing, like as soon as you design your product, you kind of have to know like what are the common materials that are being used, the common low-cost materials that are being used. Because like say for example, my electronics products, I could be using this really expensive chip that I'm buying off of like some distributor in the US like DigiKey, whereas like the same functionality is provided by this cheap, no-name Chinese brand chip that's 20 cents, and I'll be paying like $5 for it. If you don't know those things, then you're going to get hurt also. Like your margins will get rocked. So it's important to understand like where to source, how to source, and what kind of products are commonly available. Like customization is where you work with a factory on just private branding their products. So a lot of times like you're going to come up with your flagship product, and it'll be something that you custom design, you manufacture it, but then in your web shop you have like one product in your web shop. So what you'll want is you'll want a full product line, and so you can work with other factories to they'll have like kind of products where they own the tooling and whatever, and so they'll be willing to private label them with your name and logo, and then as long as you commit to like buying like a minimum order quantity, like 300 pieces or something like that. And so that's one way to fill out your product line. Manufacturing, of course, there's so many options. There's like a huge, that's like a lifetime of stuff. Final assembly, the packaging, logistics, and fulfillment, like all of those things are really important. I think
it's important just to know, like, you don't have to do everything, but you need to know it. You need to know the questions to ask if you're outsourcing, because you need to be responsible for the whole chain. So that's sort of where the skill set comes in.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that's the key point. I think knowing what questions to ask exactly, and if not knowing who you can find to ask the questions.
Yeah.
I also think just being aware that this is what you need to deal with. That's where like a lot of people fall over on Kickstarter, is because like they might have the marketing and they might have the design done well, but then if they fall over the rest of it, then all of that is basically considered manufacturing. And then so like you hear about like the coolest cooler or whatever, and then they just run into these problems where they make one mistake, it pushes out their timeline by 6 months, and they run out of money. And that's a very common scenario.
And the other thing you could even add to that, although it would probably sit under logistics and fulfillment, is things like tax, because each country has got different sort of tax requirements and so on. And if you ship it fulfillment in bulk, then you get taxed at a lower rate than if you're sending sort of what they call drop ship, which is a complete product out to the customers from a warehouse in China.
Yeah, and I think it's tax, but also just like the
financial
side of it
and legal, financial, yeah.
Understanding what's the right how should your cash flow look? When you take money, how do you spend it? How much profit do you have?
And timelines and delays, and when don't pay the factories 100% before you see revenues.
I was wondering if the shipping agents do
they wouldn't do the taxes. Basically the shipping agent will collate all the different quotes from the shippers and say these are the kind of, here's a spreadsheet of them.
And then plus with their margin, and then so the question is, do the shipping agents handle all your like taxes and import duties and all that? Yeah. So basically, they'll give you kind of the basic cost, but then also what happens is that you're going to have add-on costs. So like if a customs inspector needs to open up your product, then they're going to they're going to charge you extra for that, and that cost gets passed on to you. And so whether it might be that you have to pay the shipping agent, and then they'll pay it out, or you have to, it'll just be a fee that you pay when you receive the goods. So it depends on like what kind of deal you hit with. But yeah, like that, those costs will all get passed on to you somehow. So I think so one important thing is just being aware of all this. I think that's actually a really important thing. Like when I started, I wasn't aware of all this. I probably made mistakes in every one of these areas. So like but it's also a tall stack. And so I think one thing that we're probably going to consider is we're going to start off simple by maybe having targeted talks at simple import-export. Because import-export doesn't require you to take a lot of risk. So basically you go to the wholesale market, you find a product that interests you or maybe is close to something that you want to manufacture, and then you buy it wholesale, and then you move it to wherever you need to go. Like you move it to your fulfillment house, and then you sell it. And so that exercises your skills in marketing, sourcing, logistics, and fulfillment. And
so the idea is that rather than go straight into manufacturing where you've got to know 8 to 9 areas really well, start with something that will skill you up in a few so that you're incrementally being bombarded by all the information, and then add in the complexity later.
yeah, and then so like import-export is something simple where you can actually do that. Where it's almost like buy-sell, but there's all these steps in between, and so you can build up your networks of trusted suppliers or
And your
vendors.
skills.
Yeah, and definitely skills. And then like one step up from that would be like white labeling or private labeling. So that was I think there's like a lot of kind of disruptors in Japan that like, oh, we came up with like 10 products within 3 months, and basically what they did is they went to Shenzhen and they had it private labeled and customized with like their own Pantone colors or something like that. And so like so I think we'll probably have something where we talk about that, like how you can do that. You can do like customized iPhone covers, or customized like like speakers like that, or like your own line of was it pastel GoPro cameras, like things like that. So you can do all of that, and it's actually not that difficult. Like we went to with Alvin for the Shenzhen tour, we went to a silicone rubber molding factory, and so like
We'll never speak about.
and so they have like a common line of silicone rubber products, like kind of like mats. I wasn't gonna say that, but yeah, they had. So if you wanted to do your own custom line of like Pantone colored sexual toys, yes, you can do that too. So that'd be white labeling, private labeling, and that would kind of exercise everything. But also you start, since you're working directly with factories, you start building relationships with factories, and that's important because you'll want to know which factories you can trust and which ones are dodgy. And then, of course, like eventually getting into like full stack manufacturing, and then that's like, So I think we're probably going to start introducing it in simple things. And I think one of the goals might be to organize a trip out to Shenzhen where we like kind of hire a bus and go to a lot of these different places. And so like it might be hard to get into a factory with like 30 people, but we can definitely go to like the wholesale markets and a lot of the other places.
But also if you're going to navigate, because there's so much, it's much easier and better if you have something specific that you're looking for, or you're at a certain point, because then you're able to kind of sift through what's actually useful to you instead of, because it's a lot.
So thank you. So that's our talk. This is a brief overview. It went longer than we expected. I think maybe we take a break, maybe like 10 minutes, and then after that, then I will take some questions too. But and then afterward, Alvin will start his talk. Yeah. Actually, let me see if we can get like an email sign-up sheet, and then we'll just send it via email. So like we've had a lot of problems sending it out through Meetup, the Meetup list. Basically, it goes into everybody's spam folders, and so we just keep on getting asked to do it. So, anyways, so we'll have an email sheet, and then we'll send out like the slides if you want them.
And so Alvin's got some good stuff to say
Alvin's
about
got some
10
great,
minutes.
Alvin's got some great stories.